ever since the legendary Martin Scorsese rightfully criticized most comic book movies, calling them theme park rides and not worthy of the title of cinema. There has been an ongoing social media war between fanboys and cinephiles, as they argue over what in fact constitutes cinema. Well, now it appears that we have further confirmation on this particular subject. This time coming from respected actor Paul Dano, who infamously played the Riddler in 2022's The Batman. He decided to put his 2 cents into this conversation and add a little bit of perspective, as he proceeded to give a pretty sound explanation for why Matt Reeves' The Batman didn't fall victim to superhero fatigue. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So after a string of legendary flops just last year and now leading into this year, everyone is asking the question, have audiences grown tired of the comic book movie genre?
I'm having trouble.
Now, as much as people like to deny that superhero fatigue is a thing, I believe a lot of the evidence we have actually supports the theory that it is in fact a real thing. You have to understand, when people like myself say that superhero fatigue is real, we are mostly talking about the movies created in the genre that clearly nobody asked for. Movies like Madam Web, or The Marvels, or Black Adam, or Blue Beetle, or yes, even The Flash. You see, we are at the point where films like this are not going to attract general audiences' attention simply by just existing. There was a time when you could slap a Marvel Studios logo on just about anything, and more than likely that thing would be a success.
Shut up and take my money!
But that's not how things work anymore. Much to everyone's surprise in Hollywood, it turns out that general audiences are just a little bit smarter than they were initially given credit for. Apparently, they weren't just going to be accepting of the bare minimum forever. Eventually, this formulaic way of making films would lose its luster, and Hollywood would have to do the one thing that they weren't expected to do in this genre for a very long time, and that's actually put effort into it. Paul Dano recently shared his thoughts on the concept of superhero fatigue, and this is what he had to say. Quote, "There are enough comic book movies where you just know what you are going to get. Reading the script for The Batman, you knew it was a real film. Every sentence, that's just Matt Reeves." Now hold on just a second. Is Paul Dano suggesting that he could tell that The Batman was going to be the product of Matt Reeves' independent vision and not just another studio cash grab just by reading the script? Who would have thought? Who has been saying that very same thing for years now and being called a hater for it? This guy, that's who.
Nobody likes a smartass, alright?
This is the biggest problem with the comic book movie genre, and it's been this way for a while now. Typically, when you go in to actually watch one, you do know what you are going to get before you even see it, because they are all created under the same tired, studio-mandated formula. That's how we end up with a list of MCU movies that are indistinguishable from each other, or a disjointed DCEU that doesn't seem to have a consistent tone or vision attached to it. Paul Dano said that he knew that The Batman was going to be a real film based on Matt Reeves' script alone, implying that most comic book movies should not be considered real films, because it is very obvious that the same amount of passion and vision did not go into creating them. And you know what? He's 100% right in saying that.
Tell me when I'm telling lies!
Regardless of how you individually feel about The Batman as a film, you cannot deny that it was like nothing else we were getting in the genre at that time. And that, my friends, is why it stood out from the pack and why some people connected with it. Even if you don't like it, you can at least admit that there's enough material contained within it to actually have an intelligent conversation about it. Unlike a movie like Blue Beetle, for instance, which was forgotten just as quickly as it was released. Paul Dano continued, quote, "It's an interesting moment where everybody has to go like, okay, what now? Hopefully from that, somebody either breathes new life into comic book movies, or something else blossoms which is not superheroes. As soon as the word content came into what we do, meaning making movies or TV, it meant quantity over quality, which I think is a big misstep. And I certainly don't need that as a viewer or as an artist.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think Paul Dano is my new favorite person in Hollywood. I think Paul Dano deserves his flowers for not only being a fine actor, but for daring to tell no lies. Is this not the exact same thing, again, that I've been saying on this channel for years? If the comic book movie genre is going to survive, it needs a fresh perspective. The status quo is no longer going to cut it. If the studios continue to operate under the assumption that they don't need to change anything, then this genre will die and something else will rise up to take its place. And at this point, that might actually be for the best.
If he dies, he dies.
Why do you think it is that movies like The Batman and Joker actually worked? Well, for one, these are recognizable characters that general audiences are always going to give a shit about. But also, each of those films was brought to life independent of a larger universe that would ultimately hold it back creatively. And because of that, the creators were able to tell unique standalone stories. Every single studio right now is more concerned with creating content than they are telling stories. And that's a real problem. That is in fact what led to the quantity over quality approach that inevitably turned audiences away.
That makes sense.
That type of approach might work on your average mindless sheep who consumes everything and has the attention span of a f***ing gnat. But for the people who actually value the experience and want a little bit of substance from their entertainment, this method that the studios are currently using was never going to be appealing to those people. And on top of that, this is very unfulfilling to the people who are forced to work on this trash as well. I think many actors have made it pretty clear that they have higher aspirations than standing in front of a green screen all day, delivering cringe dialogue. And I think Paul Dano articulated that perfectly.
Ultimately, if you're going to have lasting change in anything, you're really talking about just raising your standards.
You see, you can moan and complain, you can call Paul Dano a hater, and you can curse him and his career until the end of time. But it won't negate the fact that he is 100% correct in everything he just said. And if you have a problem with what he said, then I would venture a guess and say that that says more about you than it does about him. Bottom line, stop being so accepting of mediocrity or worse, raise your standards, and it's okay to demand better once in a while. And maybe, just maybe, films like The Batman will become the norm rather than just another outlier.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.